I was thinking about listening to this book by Andrew Holacek called Total Eclipse of the Mind. And he's talking about darkness. And one of the things he's saying is that there's just a crisis, that there's not a lot of darkness. And with artificial light, that night is becoming less and less prevalent. Um, but then also noting how, when we think of some of the more poignant moments of life, that often the first thing we do is close our eyes, and go into the darkness. And just in the very beginning of it, but the parallels to particularly to centering prayer
Mm.
seem to be so strong. And what the author of The Cloud of Unknowing talks about, making this darkness your home. So
That's
I
beautiful.
don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure why that came come up. Well, it was because I closed my eyes.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
There's
I
there is
wonder.
something that is fecund about the darkness, right? Of
Yeah,
which we have a hard time embracing. I mean, we've done our best to get rid of it in many ways, but
absolutely.
it is the place of it's the place where the seed goes.
That's right. Yeah, that's what he's saying, that life arises out of darkness, and returns to darkness.
That's right.
Uh, so
Yeah.
I don't know if you had anything in particular in mind, or just the shape of this conversation, or what we might be kind of uh, talking about, what a next conversation might be, or whatever. So uh, I'm curious what ideas that you might be coming with.
Yeah, I have just started out a journey with Substack, and one of the pieces of that for me is interconnection and creating community. And your comment or insight about building community and how that is around connections and
Mhm.
knowing one another and having conversations. Um, I think that this is a very important piece of that. So I don't have any specific places to go except where our curiosity takes us around getting to know one another a little bit
Mhm.
more in a slightly different way. I know
Yeah.
that I've met you a couple of times on, I think once on retreat, and another time when you were doing an Enneagram um, retreat, I would say, at St. Jude's. And
Mhm.
um, so, and of course, the morning pauses and the
Right.
contemplative Eucharist. So these are the touch points of where I am. I have placed you in my network of in my web.
Yeah. 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 Yeah, I mean, and even those things, it's all very interesting, and exactly as you're saying, like community. Um, more and more convinced, as I probably write ad nauseum, that if our species is to make this jump to the next level of consciousness, which, P.S., I don't take for granted at all. But if we are, that there's got to be a renewal of community, and ironically, I think at a very local level as well as at a very global level. Right now we're dealing with wildfire smoke,
Mm.
coming from the Canadian wildfires in the Northeast, and I think probably the Midwest as well. But it's been really pretty noticeable here in the last few days. And it's to me, it's just a reminder of this, how we are connected. And, we're going to have to like deal with this fact that we are one on this planet. And as you say, like the individual relationships, and so it's the both and.
Yeah. Yeah. It all is woven together
Yeah,
already. Yeah.
right.
We all are.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I was reading this morning the article that you posted, and I restacked it. I think it's a Dreamlines and Heart Threads, the ancient future at the end of history.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, it's an amazing piece that kind of points to some of the things we're already talking about, our interconnections, and also the cusp of sort of the three options as this article poses of what could be. Um,
Right. Yeah. And I think one of the things that I found so heartening about that article was to say that actually, as a country, we've been here before. And at least, in the times that we've been here before, that we've made the jump. And so so that tells me it's like if we've done it before, we can do it again. Uh, you know,
yeah,
so
yeah, and it
yeah.
is it is a combination of at that very much local level of what it is each one of us can be connecting into and working with. Um, Sort of that piece of the the something that comes into cold water and everything coalesces, and then
Hmm.
it turns to ice. Um,
Hmm.
so there is that piece. So I look at my life and where are the places where there might be coalescing that comes together, so that we are moving in a direction that is towards inter interconnection, interbeing
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
in the real
What
world,
do you?
not just I don't know, not just in the ether, even though that too is needed and is underneath or above.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'm curious where you see some of those touch points in the real world in your experience.
So for for me, St. Jude's has been involved in Silicon Valley Allied for the Common Good, and so sort of an organizing body, and the emphasis is on first relationship and getting together and becoming familiar with what is percolating, what are the needs, and that is where the seeds of whatever may come next come from. That's where it starts, with
Hmm.
relationship and with different communities coming together and and holding our wider community to account in certain ways. If this is a concern, who are the people that um, touch into this, and then going to city council meetings and listening and participating, and so that these iterations of community start with relationship, and then we recognize the relationship and percolate out and um, and interrelate. It's not when people seem to talk about politics and get concerned about all of the things that are happening, and rightly so. um, Oftentimes there is this sense of not being able to do anything, or it's outside of anything that I can do.
Mhm.
So what I love about this is it's connecting back into relationship and who we are here in this community and what it is that our community members are seeing and needing, and what does that then, what grows out of that, right? How can we
Mhm.
together become a part of exploring, curiosity, interacting, yes, holding accountable, but that's not where we start, right? It's with
Yeah,
relationship.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's great. It's funny. I rarely go to church, which I find amusing after 25 years of ordained ministry. Um, and so I don't really have a religious community in the real world to reflect on that. Um, the place where I find the most significant community in real life is at the YMCA. Um, I live in this really scrappy town. It's a lot of problems, especially right around our building. There's a fairly significant homeless community and folks who are on heroin, uh, and that's really been it's kind of been encroaching in our building in ways that make it extremely interesting to be on the board of trustees. Um, but but the YMCA is such a fascinating place because the the where people's lives touch each other who otherwise would not touch.
Mm,
I mean, there's a fairly sizable Vietnamese community, a fairly sizable Russian community, um, uh, Dominican and Puerto Rican and Salvadorian, uh, and then there's the townies who, like the Irish and Italian, second, third, fourth generation folks, and they're all, it's like for a few moments of my day, nearly every day, it's touching into the melting pot of that.
mm,
And I love how there's at least one person who I see nearly every day. This guy who is a janitor at one of the local schools, retired now, who's got a son with fairly severe autism, who comes in, once a week or so. And what I love about this guy is that he is convinced that we have very different political perspectives,
mm,
which may be not completely untrue,
mm.
but I kind of stuck my foot in my mouth the other day as I greeted one of my friends in Russian, and and that turned into a completely off the cuff remark that got me into trouble about saying our president is Russian. And next thing I know, I'm backpedaling. And but what I finally wanted to say is to him was like, we're really looking at uh, the distribution of wealth and power. That's what's at the core of all of this. And I think that we can probably agree there that you know there are people who have and people who don't have. And I'm like, I'll be honest. I know that I'm not at the complete bottom of that pole. Um, you know, I'm not at the top, but there are people economically and in terms of opportunities who are much worse off than I am. Um, and what I kept kind of pulling him back from, because he would say, well, yes, and these people, and then talk about immigrants or folks that he sees as outsiders, and what they're getting and what he's not getting, and all of that. And I said, yes, I hear what you're saying. And that's actually wouldn't be an issue if so many resources weren't just taken away from everybody.
Mm,
So we're left to scrap over what's remaining. And I said, the argument is not between us. We might disagree on some things, but that's actually not. It's quite insignificant. Um, and we belong to each other, and we're in this together. And so what it was just delightful, not only that conversation, but also to see the difference. I mean, the difference of the 52-year-old version of Henry as opposed to like the 35-year-old version of Henry, who would have just gone toe to toe and turned this into some big ruckus that would not have been, useful and probably would have turned into some pretty hard feelings. Um, but to remain clear-eyed that 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 we really need to be with each other and to get to know the concerns of our neighbors, as again as I was saying so many times. Um, and I just don't see any other way, you
mm,
know.
mm. Yeah, there are so many examples of the other way, and living from that other way. It takes it takes quite a bit of work to come from a different perspective or to begin to grow into a different place.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. My movements teacher this morning, we were working on. I can't remember. Isobognik is the um, common name of the movement. It's one of um, uh, the American series that Gurdjieff taught, the last series, the 39 series. Um, but in that, all of these crazy postures and the ways that we go from here to here, and then start to the side, and how our shoulders almost naturally start to squinch up,
Mm,
and she's like, so for just a moment, thinking about what happens in the body when we're doing something awkward. What happens in our shoulders when we're doing something awkward? And how does this mirror life when there's a moment that's awkward, you know? And can we stay present in the body? It's just like the movement's not about the movement,
right.
you know,
Yeah.
it's about helping to see how we can remain supple in these otherwise very challenging moments.
How often are you in a movements class? It sounds like you have something nearby.
It's actually not nearby. These are online, but
Oh, yeah.
pretty much weekly.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going out. So Carol lives on Woodby Island,
Mm,
uh, and so I've been going to her place pretty much once a year for the last 3, 4 years, 5 years. And in fact, I'm going to be going out on the 28th to be there for 2 weeks to work with her, but also to work with a small group of facilitators, both people who are facilitating movements, but also groups in one way or another.
mm.
So,
Wonderful.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
I've
yeah. We've
been,
been working together for several years now.
that's
Yeah,
great. That's great.
you've been,
I've been in a class recently with Heather for movements, and so we've been working on some things as well. So I love it when there's an opportunity to have movements to work with. Um, one of the movements in this round has been the first obligatory, which kind of reminded me when you were talking about being in different places and sort of um, the challenges of putting in only the effort that's needed for a particular thing and allowing the rest to be as relaxed as possible. That's always one of those things that I'm working with. And then, of course, when I screw up, what happens then, right? And what do we do with that? Um, and the when I it's this is not the first time I've worked with the first obligatory. When I first learned it, I was like, "You have got to be kidding me!" I I am slightly dyslexic, so it was just like totally scrambling me.
Yeah.
But it's gotten better over time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love the first obligatory, and I'm starting to have equal affection with the second. Um, but one of the things that I noticed in working with the first obligatory is that the thing that was really getting in my way of putting the pieces together, um, was how I react in confusion.
Mm.
Because I could almost sense confusion in my head, like the inside experience and feeling of what it's like to be confused, and the reaction to the confusion. And once I saw the confusion, I was like, oh, it's just confusion. This is hard. That's all there is to it, and the pieces just kind of went together. And what's so delightful is they're not permanently together.
No, no, they're not.
As we were working on the first obligatory and the first, like, we went through the first and second obligatory first thing in class today, and like two times out of three going through the third part, I didn't get it, you know. But as you say, seeing the reactivity
Mm.
to what happens when it's not coming together, and I don't know that I actually have the same presence with the first as I do with the second. As I've come to know what it again, what it feels like, what the sensation is like when I'm just present, unflappable,
Mm.
you know, and whether I make a mistake or not. Uh, and I could feel that from the inside of the second obligatory this morning, that I said, oh, it's really, it's becoming as dear to me as the first.
Mm.
Yeah. But I was saying, jumping synapse on movements. The class that I'm leading right now, we're working with this movement called fingertip dervish.
Ah.
So there's two parts to fingertip dervish, and one part is this really strong dervish energy, relatively simple. I mean, there's a circular counting that's involved, but it's not that hard. And then the second part is as different as it could possibly be. Really flowing, and this lovely chant of, um, I am, I wish, I can work.
Hmm.
So last week, and for the previous weeks, we had just been working with the first section, and I thought that was all that was going to really want to come forward. But then before the class last week, I was really clear. No, actually, I think this is the week to teach the intrameds, the slower part,
Yeah.
and it was so fantastic because we started off with this exercise that was based on yet another dervish movement. It was really slow, the arms raised in six counts, they go down in six counts, they raise in six counts, they go down in six counts, and they raise up here in six counts and down, and then you do it all over again, right? So of course the temptation the second time through is for these first arms to get a little bit higher than they were because you've just done this. Um, but taking it slowly enough and really working with the sensation of it, it can just allow almost the arms to be raised, the hands to be raised, and like there's something holding them up, moving them up. It's not me, it's not my shoulders. It's like the support that's underneath it. So I took that into this intramed from the
Mm-hmm.
second obligatory. I mean, figurative dervish. And it was just incredible.
Mm.
The fine sensation, in my hands and my feet and in the group, and so many people commented on this. And then they asked, well, what is this? At least one person asked, what is this new movement? And I said, I'm not going to answer that, but you'll find out next week. And because there's these two parts that are, one is that really strong dervish energy, and the other that's just really flowing. And what it speaks to me is about how this is life. That there are moments that we really have to draw from the energy of fire, the energy of the earth. And then there are moments that we really have to allow this water energy to be predominant,
Mm.
and this air and perhaps even ether to be dominant. And it goes back and forth, and both are required.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah. Is this a class that you teach in person or is this online?
it's online. Yeah. I can't, I have one retreat that I'm giving this fall that it's actually going to be more of a work weekend, and so very consciously doing some of the rhythms of just Gurdjieff work, or just the same rhythm as a wisdom school,
Mm.
meditation, physical work, teaching, movements. So I'm looking forward to actually having a live group to lead, because online is it's there's nothing wrong with it,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's not the same.
It is not the same. It is not the same. Yeah. 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 So yeah, it's the there is something that happens in person, that there is this energy that builds or is created,
Yeah.
an atmosphere.
Hmm. Well, I often think, and this is part of what I get from the work with Neil Douglas Klotz, whose influence is present in my Sunday reflections nearly every week. Um, but talking about the Ruhudakucha, the holy breath, and how, or Holy Spirit, how this Holy Spirit, this holy breath is in us, and we are in it. And so it feels like in an in-person movements class, or really probably any work, but since we're talking about movements right now, how that's part of it.
Hmm.
That there's a real clear visceral sense of the group being inside the holy breath, as well as the holy breath being inside of each of the people and the group as a whole.
Yeah, and there's something about that is visceral, maybe.
Mhm.
It's our senses pick it up in ways that are not. I was going to say usual, but it's not unusual. So
Mm,
yeah,
well, that kind of gets us back to the cloud of unknowing,
yeah.
and the experience that we can have of being in the cloud of unknowing, that we cannot use the intellect. Is once you use the intellect, it's gone, right? But we can be aware of it,
Hmm.
um, sort of softly from the peripheral vision or something like that.
Yeah, the softened gaze. Yeah, yeah. There are so many different directions and places that this goes into, right? Like the flowing of the
Hmm.
water that you mentioned before, it permeates so much of our lives. Yeah. Mm.
As I'm sitting here, one of the things that I'm aware of is, I mean, as you kind of named before, how these touch points that you and I have kind of had with each other's lives, and yet I know very little about the rest of your path, your day to day, or really anything. I know very little,
Yeah.
and I'm curious. I mean, on the one hand, I treasure that, right? Because we don't need to know each other's biography to know what's happening in the moment. And on the other hand, it's like, well, I'm just really curious.
Mm. Yeah. 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 I feel the same. Yeah. I recently went through um, an ordination process for interfaith um, chaplaincy and completed a program at the Chaplaincy Institute. Um, and to me, it feels like my life is sort of yet to be shaped in some way
Mm. Mhm.
as to what might come next. Um, yeah, and so there's this sense of working to be open as well as following leads, right? You know, well, this might be this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I still work with couples, and um, I'm still very much involved in my home parish, St. Jude's, with various different things, and who knows what might happen next.
Mm. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that's just the one of the delightful parts of this journey that the unfolding that happens as we go along.
Yeah, yeah, and there is, you were mentioning earlier the intellectual center and sort of the limits, right? Um, there would certainly have been a time in my life when I would have tried to map it all out and very much from that, but that's not what it's about for me now. I mean, there is more of a paying attention to the unfolding of it.
Yeah. That theme just might reemerge on a Substack post this week. I just realized as we were saying that, the text this week is the weeds among the wheat.
Ah, yeah, Yes.
and the evil one planting it or whatever, and in all the different ways. And I was thinking about this property that we have out in the Hudson Valley, and a staghorn sumacs. That's a native plant to the part of New York, and actually, I think larger this area. Um, but it's particularly vulnerable to deer
Ah.
in the first year or so, because the shoot that comes up, of course, is going to have it's rich with everything for the tree. Um, a few years ago, there were like 20 shoots, these Saghorn sumacs, in one particular area. And I was so thrilled. And I went around very carefully and I cut around them and I just made everything so it looked nice. And then I came back a week or so later and every single shoot had been eaten. And what I realized was that I made it very easy for the deer to find them by cutting down all the weeds, you know.
When I
And I
read that
think that,
passage, I immediately thought, well, for the definition of weed is very much dependent on something outside of the weed, right?
yeah,
A plant that you don't want in a particular place, we call a weed. But as you're saying, there are moments when it's not really a weed. It is
yeah,
part of a whole.
yeah, yeah. In fact, that was some of the commentary that's saying on this, saying that what's being named as a wheat there is a kind of wheat.
Hmm.
That it's a woodier, and so the texture isn't something you'd want to eat, but it's not so foreign
Hmm.
from what's being grown there, uh,
Yeah.
you know. And then, of course, as to the degree that we can allow, this parable and perhaps all parables to be a mirror for ourselves and saying, yes, I can see these are all in me, um, just like the grounds last week. Um, we have a much better chance at the parable actually teaching something rather than turning into a polemic.
Hmm.
Mm, mm. Which, in a weird place, weird way, kind of gets back to building community.
Mm-hmm. That's the other. That's the other interpretation I've heard recently around the wheat and the. I think traditionally it said wheat and tares. um,
Okay.
I I guess tares are the weeds, but the other interpretation is, you know, who am I to judge whether someone is wheat or tare, um,
Hmm.
and sort of the concept of we'll leave it up to the divine to
Hmm.
sort it all out.
Hmm.
And when we talk about our inner world, it reminds me of um, our parts, right? Parts work is not around getting rid of the pieces that we don't like, or it is about welcome and acceptance and compassion.
Yeah. Yeah. Welcoming everything.
Yeah.
And it reminds me of the notion of conditions and accepting the conditions as they are,
Mm,
right? Which I've in recent times, I think I've beaten myself up a little bit about not being able to accept conditions.
mm,
If I could just accept what is. And then I heard somebody talking about, I think it was Neil Douglas Scott's, but he was talking, somebody was talking about this is life. Life is nothing but conditions. I'm like, to be human is to be immersed in conditions, and then something about that just like broke through the judgment and
mm,
saying, well, yes, of course you have a hard time dealing with accepting conditions because this is life. It's all over the place. It's
yeah,
saying yes to it all.
yeah.
Mm.
Mm.
So I wonder if there's any sense of where we are or what's unfolding or where we might want to go from here.
This feels complete for now for me.
Mhm. Likewise. Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. Thanks for the impetus and for putting up with me missing a message on the substance.
No worries. No worries.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been good to connect.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, and it feels like this is something that I would want to share if that's okay with you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, it would have to be okay
Um
with you because I would need to ask you for the recording.
I was going to say I'll send you a link to the recording and however, whatever it however you want to do it, either audio clips or um, just as long as you can be aware that there's a significant part of the last several minutes that again very well may get into my reflection
Yeah,
this
that's fine.
this
Yes.
Sunday. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. No, I'm thinking about perhaps a podcast and a recording. Um, but yes, everything that percolates kind of ends up in different places and goes out. It's not. Yeah.
yeah,
It's like
it's like
taking
the seed.
seedlings and putting them in different pots and seeing
Right, right.
where they grow.
Some will fall on rocky soil.
That's right. That's right.
All
And
right.
serve their purpose there for whatever that is.
Yes, yes. Well, thank you for the impetus. And
Thank you. Yeah, thanks
yeah,
for taking me up on the invitation. This has been lovely.
absolutely.